All right, welcome back to the Tool World podcast. I'm your host, David Jew, and I'm here with Master Jew.
And I'm here with Mr. Jew.
That's right. I'm thinking we should do like a new symbol here.
New symbol.
Instead of like the T, do like a W.
What? What's the T?
Well, we sometimes go, Tool World Plus.
Oh, the plus.
Oh, that's right, yeah. So for those of you
plus,
guys,
not a
sometimes
T.
we do like a plus,
plus
that's right. But I was thinking like Tool World.
W?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not. But anyway.
All right, this week we're going to be talking and discussing a little bit about the measurement in Yul-Gok, so movements 1 and 4.
Right.
And just some ideas about, what exactly are we doing? I guess the biggest part about it is where are we measuring for this?
Well, right. People do need to know that that technique is a measurement.
Right.
But if you don't explain it as an instructor, somebody might think it's a punch in a slow motion or something.
Right.
Right?
And so in the encyclopedia, it explicitly says to raise your hand.
Right.
And if you look at the picture, it's also raising to the shoulder.
That's right.
Not to the middle.
Yeah, but, your arm being to the shoulder doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a punch, because we do have different types of punches. Mm-hmm. Typically the four-fist punch is typically to the solar plex line, but you do have side front punches, which is actually to the shoulder line, it's straightforward. You have twin vertical punches, which are not to the solar plex line, so you have those as well, so they're not necessarily always to the solar plex line. And so could it be a punch? Yeah, it could have been a punch, but it does say it's a measurement, right? And so in the encyclopedia, it does say raise the arm, right? So you don't want to really make it look like you're winding up, pulling the hand back, and then executing the measurement itself.
So how would you describe this technique to like a student, or how would you explain it to them?
Right, so when you look at the pattern, let's say the very first one, because they are different from the first one and the second one, they are performed, they're performed the same, but they look slightly different, I think. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the first one, it's off on a parallel raise stance, and your hand is more like in front of your belt, and so you raise that arm, but so the arm is already kind of bent, right? And so you kind of have to extend it out, but then as you move out, it kind of looks like, because the hand is close to the solar plex line, it looks like it's doing this arc movement to the left, right, as it extends out, which is a little bit different from the other measurement, because you already have done some four-fist punch, and your right hand's already on the hip, and you move to the other side. You bring the left foot to the right, and then you raise that hand up, but it just comes up right off the hip, so it doesn't look like an arcing movement as much. Mm-hmm. But the idea is still the same. Why is it an arc again for the first one? Is because your hand is already basically at the solar plex line, and you're bringing it up to the side, to your side front. Where the second one is already on the hip, which is basically your hand is on that front side already, so you just lift it straight up. So they kind of look a little bit different, but theoretically they are the same.
Now, if I measure on somebody, so I bring my hand up onto them, that wouldn't really mean that my strike is actually going to really hit them. It's just going to strike the surface level. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that's correct. So like if you think about like measuring to break a board, we always kind of say, okay, well, put your attacking tool, let's just say we're going to punch, put your attacking tool on the board. So that's how close you need to be, right? Forget about stepping or anything like that. Let's just say you're in a sitting stance and you're going to break the board. You would put your hand up on the board. But if the arm was fully extended when you measure, you may not actually break the board, because when you break boards, you have to go in 1 inch deep. So the technique has to go in at least 1 inch deep in order for it to break. So if you measure and your arm is fully extended, there's a good chance that you won't break unless you lean forward into it. So what you might end up seeing is you might see students, when they measure, they bring their arm up on the board and their elbows are slightly bent. But how do you know exactly if that's 1 inch or not 1 inch? And so when you think about Yul-Gok, that's kind of what you're doing. You raise that arm, it's fully extended, and you kind of raise it up. The measurement is off to the side of that person. Now, obviously, this is only a theoretical idea. You wouldn't do that in self-defense. Although I do. I've said that when I spar, I use my hands as a measurement. I tap the person, that kind of tells me how close I am. Anyway, so when you raise that up and your arm is fully extended, is it 1 inch deep to the opponent? Because if it is, the next 2 punches is going to be to the solar plex line, and it's going to be, hopefully, it's going to be penetrating at least 1 inch.
Right.
That's kind of why it's off to the side and not to the solar plex line.
That's an interesting thought.
Well, I mean, you could have just measured and just put it right to the solar plex line, right?
Right.
But if you were, again, same thing. If you were trying to break boards, the arm would have to be slightly bent. The question is, how much should that bend be in order to break that board? So I have to pull it off to the side. Now, I see it's 1 inch deep. These next 2 punches should be able to do destruction.
Right. Go right in. Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
That does kind of make sense a little bit.
Yeah. It doesn't explain that in the book.
No, it doesn't. So all hypothetical then.
Well, everything is theoretical in a way.
Right.
It's I keep saying this, it's like you could be an electrical engineer and it should work this way, but if you talk to an electrician, he says, no, it doesn't quite work like that, but it's close. And I'm going to show you how it really works.
Right. I think that's a new way of explaining it. A different way of thinking about it, actually.
Well, how else do people explain that?
I don't think I've ever really heard anyone try to explain
Just
it.
measure.
Just measure, right?
Yeah.
And
Don't
see how
ask me
far
that
my
question.
hand goes out. Well, it's interesting because like when your hand is straight on the shoulder, that is definitely a farther distance than in the middle. Right? And
True.
and that goes back to your kind of point about when you measure, you want to be that 1 inch deep, right?
At least 1 inch deep. Your technique has to go 1 inch deep. Well, when you punch, it probably does move a little bit forward and then back because you need the technique has to go in, and then you have to jerk that hip back, and which jerks the arm back. So that's that jerking motion.
Right. Well, let us know your guys' thoughts on measuring on Yul-Gok. And as always, don't forget to be safe.
Keep training.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Take one.